Good morning, everyone. I want to call to order the Transportation Infrastructure Innovation Subcommittee. We have Councilwoman Stark and Grotto on the phone and Councilwoman Laura Pastor here. First item is called to the public. Do we have public? No public? Okay. Next item, minutes of the meetings of October 2nd. Any changes? Approval? Motion?
I move the minutes for October
2nd, and
October 2nd, sorry.
I will second that. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Unanimous. Next are consent items 2 through 6. Does anyone have any questions? Comments? Motion?
I move consent items 2 through 6.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second. I can't hear. Yeah, I have a hard time hearing too, but I second that.
Okay.
We have 2 seconds.
We have 2 seconds, and so we will go forward. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion carries. That brings us to the informational items. Does anyone have any comments, questions, or want to discuss any of them? Hearing none. We will go to presentations, which I believe the first one is way ahead of me.
Item 10, Madam Chair and members of the subcommittee, item 10 is a discussion of community outreach process for the Capital I-10 West Light Rail Corridor and West Phoenix High Capacity Transit. Here to present are Marcus Coleman, the city's light rail administrator, along with Jennifer Pine, who is with Valley Metro, and she's the Deputy Director of Corridor Planning. And so with that, I will turn it over to Marcus to kick off the presentation.
Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, good morning, first of all. Thank you for having us here. This is a follow-up to the directive that was given to staff back in April of this year to look at the West Phoenix corridor for the Cap I-10 project, and also look at West Phoenix as a whole for high-capacity transit. During that time, the initiative gave us about a 12-month period to go through this evaluation process, and we're coming back as part of that schedule that was provided to you earlier this year. And so with that, I'm going to hand the presentation over to Jen Pine, who's with us from Valley Metro, who has the presentation.
Good morning. Thanks for the opportunity to come back and provide an update on what we're doing to try to improve transit services to West Phoenix. I'm going to start with a report back on what we've been doing since last April. Last April was when this was an item at Phoenix City Council, and at that time, Valley Metro and the city were directed to follow up on a couple of items. Among those were to develop a schedule for public meetings, to talk about high-capacity transit in the West Valley, and also to consider other solutions in the I-10 West corridor. So we are preparing for an extensive public outreach process right now that will be kicking off shortly, and we're already starting to engage with stakeholders and talk with members of the community about that. At the meetings, we're anticipating that we'll be conducting a series of meetings coming up later in the year. And at those meetings, we would like to provide project updates on the Capital I-10 project, and also discuss, per the discussion that happened last April, are there any possibilities for accelerating any portion of Phase 2 of Capital I-10, which is currently slated for 2030. Some additional things we're looking at are funding for possible options and what those opportunities might be. We will be engaging with other West Valley cities to ensure a regional discussion about service to the west. And finally, we are looking at extending service to Desert Sky Mall. This was an item that was specifically discussed at the council meeting as well. The Capital I-10 project, as it's currently conceived, terminates at the 79th Avenue Park and Ride. So this is looking at going that extra mile or less to serve Desert Sky Mall, what's there currently, but also what's planned in the future. So this process of public outreach and analysis is slated to occur through the end of spring 2020, and then we're expecting at that time to come back to council and report back on the outcomes. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our public outreach plan and our overall approach for the next, well, less than a year, really. So now and into the winter, we are reaching out to different stakeholders, neighborhood groups, and other interested parties to talk about the process, get feedback on how we're approaching the public involvement, but also the Capital I-10 project itself. So our intention now is to be providing an update on the project and its status, talking to people about what their perceptions of the project are, issues, items that we need to be aware of or further analyze. And then within the next couple of months, we'll be moving into the next phase, which will be marked by public meetings. At those meetings, we would like to present the Capital I-10 project, any updates, and also talk about any possibility of accelerating transit improvements sooner than 2030. After that set of meetings and outreach, our intention is to take all that we've heard and sort of process that, do additional analysis if that's warranted, and then get back to the community in late spring to report back on those outcomes and ultimately come back to council. We're anticipating next summer with the report back there. So let me talk about the Capital I-10 project a little bit. I'm sure most of you are familiar. This project has been contemplated for some time. But in 2012, the Phoenix City Council did approve a preferred alternative for the Capital I-10 project. And what that action was to approve light rail as the preferred mode in the corridor, and it identified a general alignment that would run from the existing system in downtown Phoenix west to the state capitol, and then continuing on to 79th Avenue, with that latter part generally being within the ADOT right-of-way in the I-10 corridor. So in 2016, the project was phased following passage of T2050, and so phase one would run from downtown Phoenix to the state capitol, and that project is currently slated for 2024. And then phase two would run from the state capitol out to 79th Avenue. And that phase is scheduled currently for 2030. In the last year or two, I would say we've been taking a hard look at phase one. As you can see, phase one is a blend of alignment on Washington and Jefferson. And we've just been taking a hard look at that, making sure that we're responding to current conditions. And it still makes sense, in particular looking at traffic, because that's what we really heard back from the community that they were concerned about. So we've been doing some robust modeling and just looking at different ways to blend the route on Washington and Jefferson. So I mentioned that we're looking at possibilities for accelerating phase two. So let me just talk about that a little bit. We're still working on this, but just to give you a sense of how we're thinking about it, we're looking at different ways to possibly phase the Capital I-10 project. So currently, what we have on the plate is a phase one in 2024 and a phase two in 2030. In this scenario, and all of them, we're looking at that optional extension further to Desert Sky Mall. So one of the things we're contemplating is bringing it just back into a one-phase project. Does that provide any opportunities to open that service sooner? We're also looking at a three-phase project. Does that make any sense? And the idea here is that if it's in phases and you can open up a second phase to someplace like 59th Avenue sooner, does that get good transit improvements to the community sooner? Is that something worth considering? And finally, we're looking, per really the discussion in April in that motion, are different mode solutions part of the mix. So we're looking at a scenario where there would still be a rail for phase one, but for phase two, maybe a BRT type of concept. And what I mean when I say BRT is an exclusive guideway system. So it would be constructed like a light rail would be and operate that way, an exclusive guideway in the I-10 corridor, but it would be a rubber tire vehicle. So the question there is, does that reduce the capital cost in a way that it allows us to implement transit improvements sooner? So that's something that we're just exploring. And again, all of these would include that potential extra at the end to Desert Sky Mall, per the discussion in April. So I just have another slide or two just to wrap up with what we're doing now and what the ongoing work is. So on the technical side, we are assessing those downtown estate capital options. We are looking at options for possibly accelerating any portion of phase 2. We're analyzing those options for Desert Sky Mall to get there at the terminus of Capital I-10. We will be having this discussion with West Valley cities to engage them as well. And finally, coordinating with ADOT, which is just a constant for us. So we do have an agreement with ADOT regarding the use of the I-10 corridor. So we continue to communicate with them just to make sure we're coordinated on South Mountain Freeway and anything else that might be coming up. On the community engagement side, you'll be hearing a lot more from us. I think in the next 6+ months, we'll be outreaching to communities, certainly via our email lists and social media, but also we like to piggyback on existing community and neighborhood meetings. We'll be conducting our own meetings. And we'll really go talk to anybody who wants to talk to us who's interested in being engaged in this effort. Our public meetings, we're exploring dates in December. I know we did run some dates by some of the council district offices, and we're still nailing those down. We'll be continuing neighborhood group and stakeholder meetings really throughout the duration. We're starting to get some invitations, and we're looking at setting up meetings right now even, and certainly open to any input on groups or stakeholders that we should be sure to include. And finally, regular website updates is just a norm for us. We want to make sure that anybody can get information on this project and get involved online as well. So with that, it concludes my presentation, and certainly would be happy to answer any questions.
Do we have questions?
I have questions, if you can go back several slides. Right, go one more. I mean, not back, yeah. My question, after being briefed yesterday, was the state capital area and looking at 19th Avenue and 18th Avenue, and I would like to look at 17th Avenue. Because there's going to be a whole disruption in that area. And
Go back to.
if we know that area well enough, it's pretty well established, and the Department of Health and the Department of Vital Statistics is right on 19th Avenue. And how that's going to go and turn, and how much of that, I guess, roadway would be taken. That is a collector or a major avenue from South Phoenix to North Phoenix. So those were some of my interests and concerns about that area. Then the other piece was, if you can go to the next slide,
This guy.
the BRT. Can you elaborate a little bit more of scenario D? Of how that's gonna, if it goes through, rail will go how far, I guess, to the state capitol, and then you would take on the BRT from where?
Madam Chair and Subcommittee, that's a good question, and that's one that we're still exploring. But the concept right now is that rail phase 1 would go to the state capitol, and phase 2, if it were a BRT concept, it would still be exclusive guideway in the I-10 corridor. And one thing that we would consider is that if that were a BRT type of concept, that it would come straight to downtown, as opposed to stopping and forcing a transfer onto the rail. But we're still working through that concept and what it would mean to transition to a bus project.
So would you pick it up from the end of the rail line, which I'll say the Capitol, a BRT is sitting or is there, and then those that work on the west side would get onto the BRT, and it would just take you to Desert Sky?
Well, yes, it could. And one thing that we're looking at is if you were to look at BRT, it wouldn't necessarily just be at the terminus of phase 1 for a rail project. we would look at if it would continue to go downtown as well. Our goal here is just to make sure it's a convenient service for commuters, and so we would look at not forcing transfers if we did not have to.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a question about it. Before it can even begin to be built, does the square downtown, the rail square, have to be completed?
Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, right now our current plan is the downtown hub will be completed before the construction on the Cap I-10 Phase 1 actually starts to work in that area. We know that 2024 is our desired completion date for this project, as well as the South Central. But due to the Super Bowl coming to Phoenix in 2023, we're trying to speed up the process for the downtown hub to make sure we have that construction buttoned up before that activity comes to town. And so that will allow us to have the guideway work completed before we would start the actual construction for Cap A-10 Phase 1, sorry.
So this wouldn't even begin until 23 or 24?
No, we would have the guideway piece of that wrapped up before we would start heading to the west. And so what I'm saying is this piece will follow after the Cap I-10 downtown hub. And so the construction of this for utility relocations and things of that nature, depending on where the design is, we would start to do that work. I can't tell you an approximate location, but we would start to do the utility work and then come into the guideway and extend that to the west for the Cap I-10 Phase 1.
Okay. And which would be faster to build, the rail or the BRT?
I don't have that
BRT.
information right offhand. We would have to get that information and follow back up with the subcommittee for that.
And does the feds pay for the BRT buses? Do they pay for the BRT buses like they pay for what we do now?
To the feds.
Oh, yes.
the
So
vehicles.
yes, we will have federal participation in the vehicle. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Yes, Madam Chair.
But the BRT is in the 2050, isn't it? Aren't we paying some of it?
Yeah, Madam Chair, Councilwoman Pastor, yes, BRT is part of the T2050 plan. And as we look at the corridors that we're exploring for BRT, we're going to talk more about that later in this agenda. But as we looked at potential options to possibly accelerate Phase 2 going out all the way out on I-10 to the West Valley, we looked at that as another option because it would be able to be done sooner than light rail. That's one of the ways possibly to potentially accelerate that line going out west. So that's why that's one of the options that are shown.
Okay. Any other questions?
I have one more question. In the answer that was given, are you saying the cap, I think it's cap, the area in the downtown corridor that Councilwoman Williams was speaking about, it's going to be built before 2023? Or are you saying after 2023 it will be built?
So
I need clarity.
So Madam Chair and the members of the subcommittee, the downtown hub, the underground utility work and our work to get us within our guideways, we're trying to have that work completed before that Super Bowl comes to town. And this is scheduled for February 2023. The work for the Cap I-10 Phase 1 that we were speaking of, the guideway work will not continue or start on the Cap I-10 1 until that is completed. So underground utility work may start before then, but the actual guideway work, which is what we utilize to install TREC, will not start until actually the downtown hub is complete.
I guess the final point is this is not in jeopardy. This is just a matter of which and where, and that it is proceeding. Correct?
Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, yes.
Okay. Do you have any questions?
No, I'm.
I have one more. In thinking about these pieces and then the Super Bowl, there's a lot of festivals that are in this area downtown, and then the lighting of the tree and all these other pieces. Who is thinking, or more than positive, a collective is thinking, how are we going to manage that in the future? And these festivals generate money downtown. So how is that all going to be looked at?
So, Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, we are currently working with our street transportation department with all of the TRAX permits that are, the traffic management permits that are issued for different construction projects. We're also working with DPI and others that have a big presence in our downtown community and getting information to gather on all the events that are planned, all the events that are scheduled. We really like to work with Streets Transportation Department on the TRAX permits because most of those events submit for those well in advance. We're talking 3 to 6 months in advance. And so we're able to know what's coming up as well as the information that we have from our major events. Major events meeting that is actually hosted by some of the convention center staff. And so we coordinate with them, we coordinate with all of the stakeholders in the area, Orpheum Theater, Co-America Theater. We've been in contacts with them, as well as we are working with Valley Metro right now to set up a meeting for, we're calling it a construction meeting for our superintendents. And so we're reaching out to the developers of all the private developments in the downtown area to set this meeting so we can meet bi-monthly to talk about construction activities, what's coming up, and make sure that we're coordinating those efforts. And DPI has agreed to communicate that out to all the stakeholders in the downtown area.
Madam Chair and Councilwoman Pastor, the main thing there is that as we look at the options going forward and how we decide which options to recommend to the council for the alignment going out to the Capitol, that is definitely a consideration, the special events that are downtown and what the potential impact is on those events and how we can manage that, because you're exactly right. There are events right where the track is planned. There was some, at one point, a consideration of looking at doing some double tracking in the downtown area once right at 3rd Avenue and then going west from there. But that was quickly decided that was not a great option because of the traffic impacts, but it would also impact special events on Washington as well. And so those are the kinds of things that we need to consider as we move forward.
Yeah, because I just know all the festivals that come down the Tamale Festival, Cinco de Mayo Festival. I can't remember the other one I came down here for. And then for me, it's about the skating rink, it's about lighting of a tree. Where does that all go into play? And where do we then shut down a street? Because we have built and have created for the last 10 years to bring everybody downtown. Now everybody's coming downtown, and now we're going to shift. And these, to me, these are important activities to consider because they also generate money, and it brings attractions. And so, I guess my bigger vision is where we are designating areas so that those activities continue, or looking at. Thank you.
You're welcome. We have a card. Haley, would you like to come up? Haley Ritter.
Good morning, council members, and thank you for your research on these options. I think this is a great plan. The proposed light rail extension out to the West Valley is an important asset to the entire city of Phoenix because there's a lot of traffic east and westbound, and there's a lot of people who don't drive, like myself, and I think. If there's any way you could go back a couple of slides, I don't know if that's still possible, but the option that, I think it was just the one option, or I mean, the one with all the different selections of
With
choices.
the A, B, C, D.
Yeah, thank you. I think the scenario B, it looks like a great, or maybe even scenario A or B, look like the best options, possibly scenario C, depending on how long and what the planning is. I've never ridden a BART bus. Those rapid transit buses on the freeways are very confusing, and it's very difficult to ride those buses. And I have a hard time figuring out even where to find them. And I honestly just don't like the BART rapid transit buses on the freeway. I think the light rail is a much better option because it's a lot easier for riders, especially people with disabilities like myself. So with that, I appreciate you hearing my comments, and great job on your research. And I think it's a great system. We got to keep going with this light rail. So thank you.
Thank you, and I think one of our next presentations will explain the difference between the rapid bus and the bus rapid, which confuses everybody. So hold on, and they'll give you more information. Do you have a question?
One question on phase 1, phase 2, is there the ability to, at peak hours, be able to have a express cart, I don't know what express,
Right.
I don't want to say light rail because that's a whole system, but cart, or I don't know what you call it, cab?
Yeah, Madam Chairman, Councilmember Pastor, that's a good question, and that's something that we would look at in operating. And if I'm understanding you correctly, we operate our normal system, but is there an opportunity to have an express service that maybe skips stops or operates in some different way, so it's like a faster option for key connections?
Yeah, like you would, I don't know why I'm thinking of New York subway, but I am, but I'm thinking, okay, this is B train
Yes.
coming, and you know that it's not going to stop here, it's continuing. I think of the Washington Metro, when they go at peak, you know, at a certain point, if you're getting on A, there's a sign that says it's coming, get on, and then it skips certain stops, and everybody knows where their stops are.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's a great suggestion, and that is something that we're thinking about in general as we're planning for the future of the system, and how can we continue to operate it so that it works well for as many people as possible.
So it is possible.
It is
Okay.
possible.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Sorry. Well, thank you very much for the presentation. We appreciate it, and eager for you to come back and tell us your progress.
Thank you,
And-
Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee.
Make sure that you really advertise that beyond just, our webpage. Maybe if you work with neighborhood services and get their block watches on your list, or any other next door or something.
So we
That's
do
the way
plan to
people-
continue to work with neighborhood services and our neighborhood specialists. We plan to canvass as well, utilize our social media, also utilize our email blast, and also work with your offices to identify key stakeholders and key community leaders that we can work with to get that information out, as well as we try to also team up with the school districts that we work within so that we can provide them information they can send home with the children to their parents as well.
Sounds like a good plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have
Not on this,
Oh.
not on your, I just wanted, I was having a hard time hearing when I was driving, so I wanted to make sure for the record that I was an aye on both the consent agenda and on the minutes.
we heard you fine.
We heard you.
I apologize if I was cursing.
No, we didn't hear that.
We weren't going to mention that.
Wow, because there was a horrible accident at 7th Street and Thunderbird, so it made me late, so I apologize. Thank you.
Okay. Next item?
Madam Chair, here to present on item 11, the 27th Avenue Corridor Update, is Keeney Knutson, Street Transportation Director, along with Brianna Velez, who's the Assistant Director. I'll turn it over to Keeney for the presentation.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee. I'm here to talk a little about 27th Avenue Corridor. To refresh everybody's memory, back at the September subcommittee meeting, several subcommittee members discussed 27th Avenue and kind of the concern about what have we been doing in the past and what are we planning in the future for that corridor. So we went back and collected some of that information. We're here to present that today, talking about what's been done already in the past and in the future. Now, this corridor is a little bit unique, especially for this subcommittee. As you can look here, it's almost a 7-mile corridor that we're looking at here between McDowell and Dunlap Avenue. And it crosses over multiple council districts. So if you look at from the start of the south, you have it shared with both District 7 and District 4. And then north of Thomas up to Camelback Road, it's in Councilwoman Pastor's district. And then as you move further north, it's in Councilwoman Guardago's district, all the way up to about Butler Drive. And then at the far north end, it's in Councilwoman Williams' district. And I would also note that Councilwoman Stark's district is right adjacent to this as well. So 27th Avenue is a very important corridor. And I think that shows, as we talk about some of the things that have been done over the past and some of the things that streets planning to do in the future. So the first thing kind of started out was the West Phoenix Revitalization Violence Impact Project. That started out back in May of 2015, and it was a multi-department effort to look at ways to be able to tackle and address some of the issues on 27th Avenue, mainly from Indian School to Dunlap Avenue. So some of the things that they looked at were targeting visual blight in that VIP area. So some of the things that were done, neighborhood cleanups were coordinated with Arizona State University. And then neighborhood services staff surveyed over 7,500 properties, and as a result, had more than 2,000 blight violations that were issued during that time of the VIP project. And then they were able to close nearly 2,000 cases during that as well, complaints. But I think very impressively here is nearly 6,000 graffiti sites were removed along that corridor during that time. And we got in the action as well. We did an assessment in the Street Transportation Department of streetlights, and which ones were functional, which ones were not. And we identified the ones that had repair issues, and we went through and repaired those and addressed those throughout the corridor. And now I'm going to turn it over to Brianna to walk you through some of the things that we have done specifically in streets and also going forward.
Thank you, Keely. Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the subcommittee. So as Keely mentioned, as we talk about 27th Avenue improvements, what is it that the Street Transportation Department operates and maintains within the right-of-way? And so traffic signals, street lights, and paving and landscaping are the 4 items we're going to touch on through this presentation. So as we talk about traffic signals, currently there are existing traffic signals at all of the major arterial, major collector intersections along 27th Avenue. Pedestrian safety is an important focus for the city right now, and so the Office of Pedestrian Safety has been working hard to identify high pedestrian collision areas. And so one of the areas that they identified recently was 27th Avenue between Bethany Home Road and Rose Lane. And so we funded this fiscal year for a new hawk within this location. So staff is currently working on design, determining what's the best location within that stretch of 27th Avenue. Streetlights. The Street Transportation Department just wrapped up the LED streetlight conversion project, and that was a conversion of over 93,000 streetlights within the city of Phoenix. They were all brought up to our new standard of 2,700 Kelvin, and 27th Avenue, this stretch, was completed as part of that. In addition, pedestrian safety, as we mentioned earlier, that section of 27th Avenue from Bethany Home to Maryland Avenue was determined that a lot of those pedestrian collisions were at night. And so this was an area where we needed to take a look at lighting. And so 27th Avenue was constructed before our new standard of lighting, which is double-sided lighting on arterial streets. And so when you look at 27th Avenue, majority of 27th Avenue is single-sided lighting. So this was an opportunity to look at that area as well. And so this year, we also funded a half-mile from Bethany Home to Maryland of adding new lights on the east side, so we will have double-sided lighting within that half-mile section. In addition, obviously, there are several areas throughout the city where we only have one-sided lighting because they were constructed before our standard. And so we identified some of those areas in relation to high pedestrian collisions. And so we went after some highway safety improvement grant funding. And so we identified 14 half-mile segments. 5 of those 14 half-mile segments are along 27th Avenue. We're happy to say that last week we found out that we were awarded the grant funding for this. And so we were awarded approximately $3.5 million in grant funding to get double-sided lighting on 14 half-mile segments. And so 5 of them along 27th Avenue. So as we talk about pavement treatments, there has been a lot of utility work going on 27th Avenue. Southwest Gas has been working on 27th Avenue for a considerable amount of time. They are wrapping up, and so this is our greatest opportunity now to get in and do some pavement treatments, a mill and overlay. So we have 3 upcoming ones. So this fiscal year, we have Bethany Home to Glendale Avenue, where we'll be doing a mill and overlay. And in fiscal year 21, we have McDowell to Thomas, Camelback Road to Bethany Home Road, as well as Glendale Avenue to Butler Drive. So we're really excited to get in there and get some new pavement in there. So as we talk about landscaping, so traditionally, Street Transportation Department maintains the landscaping on arterial and collector streets. However, there are many areas throughout the city where they are privately maintained by property owners, as well as business associations, as well as homeowners associations. And so as it relates to 27th Avenue, there are a significant amount of landscaping that is maintained by private owners within this stretch. And so when we look at completed landscape improvements that we've done over the last several years, in 2018, from Myrtle to Belmont, we had the opportunity to go in and refurbish the irrigation system and plant 50 new trees. And in 2016, there's an area between Indian School and Camelback where we were able to go in and plant 45 new trees. And so as we take a look at the landscape opportunities, we identified potentially 4 areas: Thomas Road to Osborne Road, Indian School Road to Camelback, Ocotillo to Lamar, and Hayward to Augusta Avenue, where these are streets maintained areas. We think there are some opportunities to go in and add some trees, some shrubs, some ground cover. Not all of these locations are we able to add trees because there may be some overhead lines. They may be a very small area. There's one area in particular near Ocotillo Road where we have an existing SRP irrigation pipe, and we're working with SRP to see if we can come up with a solution where we're able to add some trees in there. So we're working through that issue right now. But all of these are great opportunities where we think we can look for funding opportunities not only within our department or collaborate with another department or local community groups. And with that, we'll take any questions.
Questions?
With the tree planting, is there I know I'm stepping miles ahead, but is there a maintenance plan around it? And what I mean is a maintenance plan of making sure that it's getting watered, if it gets diseased, for replacement, because the past, we've placed trees and then we remove them, and I think we end up where we are today and putting trees back. So I just want to make sure there's a maintenance plan along with this.
Madam Chair, Councilwoman Pastor, yes, definitely with now that Streets has taken over the landscape maintenance and we're fully committed to that, we have gotten additional resources from City Council this past fiscal year to increase the level of service we have there, not just for maintaining our landscaping, but also for doing irrigation checks out there to make sure we're taking care of those. And we also have our program that's been in place for a number of years where we're replacing any trees that we lose due to a storm or traffic accidents. So yes, as soon as any of these trees that we're going in are potentially going to be going in here will be part of our maintenance plan. So we'll be maintaining them on a quarterly basis and doing those continual irrigation checks to make sure we have proper watering and don't have any leaks.
Oh, yeah, water conservation, right there.
You have any questions?
No,
Okay. Haley, did you want to make comments?
Thank you. I just, as far as the mill and overlay sections, as long as there's those collector streets along 27th Avenue, it's very easy to bicycle up and down that corridor. I use it a lot for work. And, but the sections that don't have those side collector streets, I wonder if there's any option of maybe including bicycle lanes in those sections. I can't exactly picture which sections don't have that side street, but for any areas that don't, I encourage you to maybe try and include a bicycle lane on the street. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Hearing none, thank you very much. Very good. Keep us posted.
I'm excited about it.
Does this mean then they'll go to 35th Avenue?
Goes all the way up to, oh, well.
Well, yeah,
Later on.
and aligned with this.
Right, right. No, I see what you're saying.
Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, the final presentation today is on the Bus Rapid Transit Program, and to give you an update on that, here is Jesus Sapien, Public Transit Director, along with Sarah Katecki, the city's new Bus Rapid Transit Administrator, and Matthew Taunton from HDR, consultant that was brought in to help with planning for Bus Rapid Transit. With that, I'll turn it over to Jesus.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee. Thank you for having us here today. We want to give you an update on what we've been doing on the Bus Rapid Transit, or BRT, side of things in bus operations. As you may recall, in 2015, when voters went to the polls on Proposition 104, we had a map on there that showed some high-capacity transit corridors for both bus and rail. And one of the first things we were asked to do as time has gone by and the city has grown is to reevaluate and validate those corridors and see if those corridors still make sense or if there's potential opportunity to look at new corridors. And since then, that's what we have been doing. And so I'll turn it over to Sarah and Matt to provide you an overview of the work that's been done, what the analysis shows, and the next steps relative to community outreach that we'll be doing pretty extensively and for a long time to obtain that community input as we begin the discussion with the public about what BRT is, how it operates, and where it potentially could go. So I'll let Sarah and Matt take over and give you the details.
Could you first explain the difference between rapid service and BRT?
Absolutely. We can include that as part of the presentation, but
Okay.
in a nutshell, what we've historically done in this region with rapid service that we've had since the early 2000s is those routes primarily go from a park and ride or transit center on the outskirts of town. For example, we have Pecos Park and Ride, we have Happy Valley, Bell Road, we have along SR 51. And what those do is they make 1 or 2 or 3 stops and then come straight downtown. But what those routes do is that they are relegated to freeways. What we're going to talk about today as part of BRT is how we can improve service on local streets that we know have a high ridership. And we need to move more people with less vehicles. So similar concept, but different type of service. Matthew's one of the guys that I've known for a while that knows a lot about what BRT has been done in other countries, or other cities rather, in the U.S., and he can elaborate more on that.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, in response to questions and comments from Citizens Transportation Commission and Council, we collaborated with our consultant HDR on a few deliverables. First, by utilizing the most recent data, we asked them to reevaluate the existing BRT corridors that were identified on the T2050 plan. And with this updated information, also identify other potential corridors for further consideration. In the approach, we looked at current transit propensity or patterns, including demographic and socioeconomic conditions, reviewed current and historical transit performance, primarily ridership, and analyzed that data and overlay the transit performance and transit propensity information in a map formation, which you'll see here momentarily. The last item is the community education and engagement portion. We have created this plan to capture strategies and activities that will be used to guide the development of the BRT program. And with that, Matthew Taunton with the HDR will provide further detail. Matthew.
Thanks, Sarah. Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, good morning. So let's start with the question, what is bus rapid transit? So BRT, in basically the most simple terms, is a form of advanced bus service that improves transit speed and reliability, passenger capacity, and probably most importantly, the customer experience. And what's unique about BRT is it can be planned and designed to best meet the needs of community, in this case, Phoenix. Now, there are some typical BRT elements that are kind of standard across the universe of BRT projects, and these may include some or all of these elements. So the first of which is transit spot improvements. That includes things like transit signal priority. Other elements include enhanced stations, custom buses, advanced fare collections such as off-board fare payment, and then unique branding. Another element that's quite common but varies dramatically is dedicated lanes. Some BRT projects have dedicated lanes for their entire alignment, while others have no dedicated lanes at all. So the level of investment for these BRT elements is ultimately what determines the type of BRT. Now, I mentioned earlier there is no universal standard for BRT, So what we've tried to do here is organize it into 4 levels. So level 1, this would be your bare bones BRT. This would have the lowest capital cost per mile, but it would include many of the elements I just referenced. Those are highlighted in the center column in green, things like transit spot improvements, station and buses, and so on. But they would not, level 1 would not include dedicated transit lanes. Now levels 2 and 3, these have a slightly higher capital cost per mile. They do have those same elements I mentioned earlier in the center column, but they also have dedicated lanes for portions or small segments of their alignment. And then finally, level 4, this would be your full-blown BRT. This would have the highest capital cost per mile. Again, would include all those elements in the center column, but would include dedicated lanes for their entire alignment. And you can see a trend emerging here, which is that the projects, the higher the capital cost, typically is associated with the higher amount of dedicated lanes because there's more infrastructure involved with it. So now I'd like to discuss some of the existing transit conditions that set the stage for BRT in Phoenix. So just kind of as a bus service 101, as many of you are probably aware, Phoenix is the dominant transit provider in the region. Over 2/3 of all transit boardings in the region are in the city of Phoenix. And Phoenix has a grid network that many systems aspire to. But one of the challenges of a grid network is it relies heavily on transfers, particularly when you're trying to travel diagonally across the grid. The other challenge is that much of the current bus network has plateaued in some corridors in its operating structure. So for example, many of the core Phoenix routes, they have 10-minute frequency or even 8 minutes frequency in the peak. You could add more service in those corridors or more frequency, but there's probably going to be diminishing returns unless you package that with other investments in terms of transit infrastructure. So really the challenge for Phoenix is how do you improve transit speed and reliability to better meet unmet transit demand? So how does Phoenix compare to some of these other cities that have BRT? We've chosen 3 peer examples here, Kansas City, Minneapolis, and Seattle. The lines in green here on the chart, that shows the local bus ridership in their corridors before BRT was implemented. The orange lines, that shows the corresponding increase in ridership once BRT was implemented. So you can see there was a dramatic increase in ridership in many of these cities with the implementation of BRT. What's interesting, if you then compare that their original local bus ridership with ridership on some of our core Phoenix routes, you'll see that we're already starting at a higher point. Phoenix has a very robust, yes?
Sorry to interrupt, but the 3 cities that you're comparing us to, they also have light rail, correct? Minneapolis and Seattle do.
Minneapolis and Seattle do. Kansas City has streetcar.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So just the lines on the 3 lines on the right, green lines, those show some of the corridors in Phoenix. And again, the point being that Phoenix is starting at a point of very high ridership in some of these corridors. And that bodes well for the potential for BRT in Phoenix. So now I'm going to walk you through a series of maps that document transit propensity and performance in Phoenix. And I realize this might be hard to see on screen, so these maps are available in your packet if that's easier for you to look at. So the first item is transit propensity, and Sarah mentioned that. Those are the demographic and socioeconomic indicators of potential transit performance and transit demand. These are things like population density, employment density, low-income households, and so on. And we have the individual mapping with each of these categories. But what's shown on the screen here is a composite overlay of all those categories together. And the areas with the darkest color, those are the areas with the highest intensity or density of uses. And those are the areas that are the best indicators for transit potential and transit performance. Now, the other component of our analysis was, do you have a question, Councilwoman? Okay. So the other component of our analysis was to look at transit performance, specifically ridership. So ridership in this region is most often reported at the route level. But what we're really interested in is how it performs in those segments along the route. And we can do that by looking at boardings by stop data. So you can imagine how many bus stops there are in the city of Phoenix. What we've done here is we've aggregated the boardings information from all those bus stops into 1-mile arterial segments. And what you see on the screen, the green lines, those are the 1-mile segments that have the highest ridership productivity for bus routes in the city of Phoenix. What we've also done here is we've overlaid that on the transit propensity graphic I just showed. What's interesting to note is that the areas with the highest transit performance overlap very directly with the areas with the highest transit propensity. And that's a great thing. That means that the local bus network in Phoenix is doing what it's supposed to do. It's serving the areas that have the most transit potential and transit demand. So I realize you probably want to look a little bit closer at some of these corridors. So they are, the areas with the highest ridership by segment are focused in the center of the city, and they do share some common characteristics. For example, many of these segments are on the routes that have the best frequency, the longest span of service. Another common characteristic is they often intersect with other high-frequency routes, and they also intersect with light rail. So how does this relate to the original BRT corridors that were identified as part of the Transportation 2050 program? So this map shows those corridors that were included on the Prop 104 ballot in 2015. Those lines are shown in orange. They were Bell, Thomas, Baseline, 24th Street, and then 19th or 35th Avenue were shown as alternates. So after going through our transit propensity and performance analysis that I just discussed, and then looking at that ridership by segment, basically those green lines on the map, what happens if we overlay that information with the original corridors? And that's what this map on the screen shows. So the lines in green, these are the potential corridors that have the highest potential for BRT in Phoenix based on current conditions. So this was step one of our analysis. The next step is we're going to use a ridership forecasting tool provided by the Federal Transit Administration that's going to allow us to model ridership looking at both singular corridors and potential combinations of corridors. We're going to look at both current conditions, and we're also going to look at future conditions because we want to account for future changes in travel patterns, such as the light rail extensions that were already discussed earlier in today's subcommittee meeting. The results of that analysis will be shared at a technical workshop that we'll be holding in December, and it'll be at that workshop that potential BRT corridors will be recommended. Those recommendations will then come back to the Citizens Transportation Commission and this subcommittee likely in the new year. And that workshop, members of Mayor and Council and the Citizens Transportation Commission will be invited to participate. So the final piece of today's presentation is the community education engagement. So I mentioned that one of the unique things about BRT is that you can plan and design to best meet the needs of Phoenix. So how are we going to do that? Well, we're going to do it through the community education and engagement program. Now, this slide shows some of the goals of the overall program. So first and foremost, the goal is to develop viable BRT options for the city of Phoenix as identified in the Transportation 2050 plan. But we also have other specific goals we want to reference, such as we want to link our outreach activities, education outreach activities, with specific technical activities and milestones. And we also want to provide continuous opportunities for education and engagement throughout the BRT program. And that's summarized a little bit better in this outreach graphic. Really, we have three phases that are layered together in terms of our education and outreach efforts. The first is this initial education effort. That will start in the new year, and that will really focus on answering the question of what is bus rapid transit. Your earlier questions today just about general confusion between BRT and rapid, that's going to be one of the key things that we need to educate on so that people can make an informed decision or give informed input on BRT in Phoenix. The next phase
Can't we give it a real sexy, cute little name to separate one of them?
We hope to do that, yes.
Okay.
Branding will be a core component of the Phoenix BRT program.
Could you do it in a contest or something?
Absolutely.
Really advertise what you're doing?
Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, we've actually had that discussion to talk about a color scheme and a branding, and that's actually one of the very ideas that we had. We'll give you full credit, Madam Chair, absolutely. But we actually thought about that very thing is, should we do some type of contest as we move forward with the branding and the color schemes? We want public input on that, absolutely. Other cities have done that, so we'll explore that.
Sorry to have interrupted.
No problem. So I mentioned that first phase will be the initial education effort. Now, the second layer of outreach will be focused citywide, and that will be getting input on the recommended BRT corridors and the network that they create. So remember, this is a citywide infrastructure project, so we'll want to get input all around. Now, the third and final layer is corridor outreach. So this is going to be outreach that's tailored to those recommended BRT corridors specifically. So finally, just want to update you on a couple upcoming activities. So I mentioned that initial education piece. We're in the process of developing a project website for the BRT program that will go live in January. And then the other thing that we're working on is a BRT 101 video that's essentially going to answer that question. What is BRT? How would it fit in the city of Phoenix? That will be shown on the website as well as other formats. And then finally, the last point, just want to reiterate, the next immediate step will be our BRT technical workshop that we'll be holding in December, and we would welcome your participation. So with that, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions from you on BRT in Phoenix.
And Madam Chair, I just wanted to clarify that relative to the recommendation of the eventual BRT corridors, That will all be a result after we have the technical workshop, and then we meet with mayor and council to give them what the analysis shows. One of the things that we've discussed internally is the lines on a map are the starting point. That's not certainly the ones we're recommending at this time, because the other thing that we have parallel conversations going on with our partners such as Valley Metro and MAG is that some of these may be regional in nature. There's a potential for that. So part of the workshop will be talking to our partners in the region to see if there's opportunities for other cities that want to participate in these, just like we do with local service and some of the expresses that go through multiple cities. That will be a cog in the wheel of this discussion. So as Matthew said, we will come back at a later date with the recommended corridors before we even go out to have that discussion with the public. And the thing to know is that we'll be working with all council offices to gauge who should we go talk to, village planning committees, neighborhood groups, things like that. We want your input as to who we should go talk to, because we know that there's an education aspect to this, but there's also an explanation as to when we get to that point, the rationale that went into the corridors that'll be proposed at that time.
Thank you. Councilwoman Stark?
Thank you. So when you're doing public outreach, will you be talking about all the routes and what might be a fixed route versus a lane that you can share with cars? In Seattle, I know in some of their segments, they don't have a fixed line. It's not dedicated just to the bus. But so I know that in the map, Bell Road fell off in your analysis. But looking at some of the density along Bell Road from 16th Street to 19th Avenue, I think maybe you could do some kind of bus rapid route, but it wouldn't be a fixed lane. But with Paradise and all the apartment complexes in that area, that might be a good way to connect it to 19th Avenue and move people down. So are you going to look at all the different types? Like a fixed route might work better, or a dedicated lane may work better in Central Phoenix versus maybe some of the outlying areas of the city?
Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, absolutely. We will be looking at where does dedicated lanes make sense in whole or in part for a corridor. The other thing that we've been discussing internally is that the corridor doesn't necessarily need to be a straight line. It can be something that starts on one street or avenue and takes a turn and continues elsewhere, because we want to make sure that we are either connecting to other productive routes. Do we want it to terminate at something like a transit center or park and ride? Or do we want to make a connection to something like the airport or a light rail connection? So yes, that is something that will be part of the discussion.
Okay, because I would appreciate maybe reevaluating that portion of Bell Road, because looking at your map, you can see it's very dense, especially 7th Street and Greenway. That is the largest apartment complex in the state of Arizona. So there should be probably some connectivity to the downtown area. And also when you do the video, maybe you can show actual bus rapid transit in other communities like Las Vegas. I think that looks a lot more like a light rail in Las Vegas as opposed to what's in Seattle, as opposed to what's in Cleveland. So sometimes real videos of how it works in other cities, I think, would be helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For that input.
Thanks.
So there's, as you mentioned, there's a lot of activity within the core. And there's ADOT or MAG, it's MAG, putting a bridge. There's a lot of development happening on Thomas that now will impact. So I guess what I'm saying is all the data that you're looking at is there, but I'm looking at, and I believe all of us are looking at, we know what the future's bringing. And we also know where our transportation patterns are getting shifted and changing and possibly won't have the capacity. And I know as we're looking at patterns, now you're asking to place another element onto the roadway and trying to get people off off the streets. I'm still not convinced because I'm in the middle of the bubble. I say I'm always in the middle of the bubble because I like my car and I like my independence, and I like my time. And so then on the other side, we're preparing and building for the future and for those that don't want a car and they seem to have time and be able to get to and from. What our reality is that we know our streets and know our districts well enough that we can tell you where all the gridlock is and how to move and how to go. So what I'm asking for is when items get presented, I want a simulation that is those actual streets demonstrating that it is going to save people time, because time is money, and that it's actually going to demonstrate that we're making an impact on our traffic patterns, and be able to show to the public, this is why we're doing what we're doing. And I know we're going to go out and say, this is the possibility. I actually want to see it happen. I don't want to wait till it's already, we make a decision and then public comes back and says, wait a minute, there's a problem. I don't want to be in the situation that I was in with the light rail. So I'm just making that request to everybody.
Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, point very well made. There are some things that we can do in traffic analysis software, but we would also look for opportunities to actually go out there, take a bus on the street, and undertake some of those activities. And I think that's where Sarah's 20-plus years of traffic management will come into play as we roll this program out, because there will be, you're absolutely right, Councilwoman Pastor, some analysis that has to do of current, future traffic patterns, as well as what impact this may have on it. So yes, we will look at that.
I have a couple of questions. I know the ridership up north is not very much because they haven't had, or they have very poor service. It takes forever to get downtown or across town. But I'm going to use Happy Valley. Happy Valley, you know it well. It's connecting to Peoria. Peoria is probably the second fastest growing city in the valley. And it is a regional road. And I think it's really important that we talk with them, tell them, see if we can't coordinate in some fashion, get them to contribute, that there's a real route and people can understand that this is going to provide real service. Because you have an east-west, but it also connects into 35th or coming from the east, 19th Avenue. And I think we're going to miss the boat if we don't recognize that's going to be a very highly populated area. And it's pretty much ignored now, but its day is rapidly coming. And I just think it's very important that we have a lot of conversations with Peoria because they are expanding. And the potential is so great, I just don't want to miss the opportunity. So, thank you.
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you for that input. One of the things that we've actually discussed, and we've begun the conversation with MAG, is to provide this information at some of the regional meetings. As we staff the Valley Metro Board meetings, we are hearing cities like Peoria recognizing that they need to do more advanced planning because they're realizing, as you know, before Bell Road was their major street, but ever since Happy Valley opened west of 67th Avenue, they're getting a lot more traffic there, connecting to the 303. So we would like to go and present this information to kind of plant the seed that there are regional opportunities, and we will certainly continue that conversation.
Good. I've talked with Mayor Carla several times about this, and she's very enthusiastic that we investigate the possibilities. Because she's struggling with growth in her city, and it's all going through Phoenix to get to the job. So thank you very much.
I have one more comment. I would like to look at, since our west side rail, which I will call Camelback, was eliminated, I would like to look at that corridor and also be able to talk with the city of Glendale and see if we then will, can start some connectivity with the BRT. And look at that route as we move forward, or how the three, or even Indian School, but what does that look like?
Certainly, we can have those conversations. Thank you for that input.
We do have a card, Peggy Neely. Morning.
Well, listening to this, I'm Peggy Neely. I live in the Northeast area. I used to represent that area. And I hear both Councilwoman Stark and Councilwoman Williams talk about the North area. I think that for years, even while I was here, I advocated that we need to find transportation farther up in the northern area. And I think a good example today was Councilwoman Stark talked about the traffic getting in here. I left Bell and the 51 to get downtown today at 7:30. I arrived here at 9 o'clock. So what I think I need to say to you guys is it's great to have option 1, 2, 3 maybe, but you ought to take the money that you would buy real estate with for dedicated lines and expand transportation in the northern areas. We talk about all the traffic on the streets. It's the folks that don't have the ability to ride in a convenient way from the north area to downtown that are congesting the streets. They have no choice. They get in their car and they just come downtown because we can't catch a bus as some of the other folks do in other areas. So I think I've always advocated we need to expand into the 550 square miles Phoenix is. We can no longer say, well, this is where the core is. We need to do our own planning. We need to look to say, how are we going to get some of these folks off the freeways and off the streets? But currently, I'll tell you, District 2, District 1, and District 3 residents are a large portion of your street congestion because they don't have other options. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Oh, Haley, did you want to, sorry?
Well said, Peggy. Thank you. I spent about 2 hours last night reading this entire study, and thank you for that. I appreciate it. I noticed that I understand the difference between bicycle lanes and bicycle ridership and public transit, but those two go hand in hand in many, many ways. And sometimes when I'm riding the buses, I notice that they're making a note of the bicycle I'm throwing up on the front of the bus, you know. And I wonder why there's no mention of bicycle studies incorporated with this BART plan or the bus rapid transit. And everywhere I go, I've noticed there's more and more bicycles. I interpret for the deaf community all over the valley. I go to the Northwest Valley. I go to Peoria all the time. I go to North Scottsdale. I go out to East Mesa, Tempe, and even Tolson and Avondale. There's bicycles everywhere. There's a lot more people riding bicycles these days because there's just not a lot of, I don't know. I don't know exactly how to explain it, but with the buses, with the options, a lot of times there's a bus and it's full of bicycles. I can't get on it. I have to get on my bike and just, pedal 10 miles to get out to West Phoenix or something. There's a lot of need for studies to include bicycles stuff in your plans. And then also, let's see. But I live in Westwood, by the way, which is a very high-density populated area, and there's a lot of people that use the light rail from that area, and there's a lot of ridership east and westbound, like Councilwoman Pastor said, on Camelback. There's a lot of ridership east and west on Camelback. East and west on Bell and Greenway, those buses only run every hour or so, which is a very difficult situation because there's, like Peggy was saying, there's a lot of people using the buses now up in the North Phoenix area. And there's a huge need for more frequent bus service up there. And I think that's part of what you're studying, but it needs to be considered that there's just a lot more ridership on public transportation and bicycles too. Bicycle infrastructure is important, and lanes, bicycle lanes on the streets need to be included in all mill overlay projects. I mean, I just think that that's kind of a standard, and I know I'm just babbling on. I got my bicycle necklace on that I got at the big festival last couple weeks ago. So anyway, I appreciate you hearing all my comments, but it was a great study and you did a good job. Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Any more questions?
I just have one question, because Thomas, Indian School, and Camelback are being looked at, and I can't remember the other street, Bell, I think, or the other streets. Some of those have existing bike lanes, so I guess it'll depend on which 1, 2, 3, or 4 then determines what we're gonna do. But if we did, I think, 4 dedicated lanes, then what happens then to those bike lanes? Because there's only so much space or so much width within the street. Okay, and those are just thoughts, because I'm sure you'll answer them.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And be sure and tell me when you do the contest.
You can design it.
Okay, I think that's the end of this agenda. Do we have any other public cards? We do not. Do we have any future agenda items?
Yeah, I would like an update on the 3rd Street Promenade. Yes, 3rd Street. I would like an update on that area.
Where is it?
It's from, I want to say it's starting from downtown going all the way up to Indian Steel Park. I think it's 3rd Street. Yeah, okay. An update on that, because I'm having constituents call me and asking me 20 million questions.
I'm checking to see if it's already on here, but I know we probably need to talk about water infrastructure plan. They're going to be doing an alignment along 32nd Street, and there's been a lot of inquiry, mainly from probably District 6 and 3 and 2, but it's also going to go through the mountain preserves. So I think there's a lot of discussion going on, and so maybe we can get an update, and if there's any other critical public infrastructure with regards to water coming up, I think it would be helpful. I know the public hearing they had, the first meeting on the 32nd Street did not go well, so maybe we can advance some of these projects a little quicker, and might be a good place to start here, and then we can help get the word out.
That's fine. That's good. Because it seems to have a great impact when they put those water lines in those streets.
Yes.
Or the sewer lines.
Yes. A lot of questions going on.
7th Street, seems like it was under construction for a decade.
I would agree.
Yes.
Since I take 7th Street.
That's what's happening on Camelback right now.
Right.
I know. I try, no offense, but I try to
Yeah.
avoid Camelback.
Yeah, I know.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, staff, very much. We'll see you next month.